Close your eyes for a second. Imagine dragons flying through the cloudy blue skies, sword down by your hip, and after a long day in the dungeons, you take a breath of fresh air. That is what it felt like as a kid playing pretend out in a field with a stick in your hand. Now what if you could make that tangible? Hey traveler, my name is Kevin. Grab a seat by the fire and listen to a skeleton talk about world building. Elden Ring, Delicious in Dungeon, and Middle Earth. These are just a select few of some of my favorite worlds, but we're here to talk about you. What would your dream world look like? Would dragons be robots? Would it exist in an interdimensional subway? Would my social life improve? These are all important things to consider when creating a world. To keep it simple, let me break it down into parts. The trunk, the branches, and the leaves.
I am Groot.
So what?
The trunk of a world refers to the core element or event which the entire world and narrative revolve around. It refers to the central theme or concept that drives the development of the world and shape the story within it. For instance, in a world where the central focus is a great war between gods, the narrative can result from power vacuums, shifting allegiances, and broken landscape. There are two ways you can approach creating your trunk: story-centered and world-centered. A story-centered approach is the development of the world from the perspective of the story first. This focuses on world building to reinforce the theming of the story and what you want to convey. A great example of this is Fullmetal Alchemist. Within the story of Fullmetal Alchemist, the first thing they put forth is the law of equivalent exchange. To obtain something of equal value must be lost. This law acts like a moral compass embedded in the world itself. When Edward and Alsfond try to transmute their mother, the consequence isn't just punishment, it is a deeply personal loss of Alsfond's body and Edward's arm and leg. This perfectly encompasses a story-centered approach when it comes to world building because this message ripples throughout the entire series. A world-centered approach is the development of the world from a bird's eye perspective, building in a unique and finely crafted environment for a story to take place in. This focuses on world building first to develop an intricate environment or themes that you want to ring throughout the story. A great example of this is Blade Runner. It centralizes this focus on a dystopian setting of perpetual rain and towering skyscrapers to create this feeling of feeling entrapped and isolated in this cold and damp environment. The usage of world building the setting helps to narratively push themes of the meaning of existence, consciousness, and the ethical boundaries of technological advancement. The world isn't just made to reflect the main character, but to create this real, undiluted environment where the main characters feel real. The branches, in terms of world building, refer to the specific elements or aspects that stem from the trunk of your world. The branches represent more defined parts of the world that are still deeply influenced by the core idea. A branch can be a key event, location, character, culture, or object that plays a significant role in the world or story. For example, continuing our idea of a great war between gods, the branches might include specific places like ruined cities, magic relics that hold power, or factions that have formed. Again, you can use both a story-centered or world-centered approach towards this. A story-centered approach to world-building branches means creating places, events, or characters that specifically serve the progression of the story. Each branch is designed to echo or challenge the story's theme, enhancing emotional stakes and narrative cohesion. A great example of this is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The divine beasts within the story are these ancient machines that were overtaken by the antagonist Calamity Ganon, with each beast serving as a major plot point in the story, and reclaiming them acts as a narrative checkpoint for the player's goal. The divine beasts within the story act as storytelling tools that both keep the plot grounded and advance it. A world-centered approach to branches starts by fleshing out parts of the world first and then letting the story emerge through those details. Rather than being created to serve a narrative, these branches are built to represent the world's depth, and the story uncovers or reacts to those over time. A great example of this is Dark Souls. places such as Anorlando or the Kiln of the First Flame aren't even introduced as part of the linear plot. Instead, they are discovered through the exploration of the environment, item descriptions, and enemy design. Dark Souls utilizes these branches as pieces of a puzzle that enhance the immersion of the audience and make the world feel living and breathing. When world building, it is important not to lock yourself to a single approach, but to use a variety of skills for this. However, it is still important to consider the pros and cons of both world building approaches. The pros for story-centered world building are the world is built specifically to enhance the plot, world elements directly serve the story, and you only have to build what the story needs. However, the cons are the world might feel shallow or underdeveloped, it leaves little room for open-ended discovery or curiosity, and since the world is tailored, it can be hard to expand later. The pros for world-centered world building are a richly developed world that can feel real, allowing audiences to explore and uncover meaning throughout the environment. The setting is designed to support many stories, characters, and arcs over time, and players can find meaning through exploration. However, the cons are, if not tethered, the world can feel very distant or aimless, lore without purpose can bog down the narrative, and the narrative for these stories is often slow.
I am Groot. I'm Groot.
At this point, you can stop world building. Simply having a trunk and branches is enough to span a world of endless possibilities and outcomes. But come here. We are insane. We know no bounds. We don't have a social life. The leaves in terms of world building are the small, specific details that exist within the world. These details often act as a reflection or extensions of the trunk and branches. They are usually not the core drivers of the story, but they help add richness, texture, and believability to the world. You can think of them as everyday elements, micro-interactions, traditions, visual cues, or environmental nuances that ground the world and make it feel alive. For example, continuing our idea of a great war between gods, the leaves might include things like shrines built from divine bones tucked into alleyways, folk lullabies that warn of divine wrath, or war-scarred terrain where crops grow in twisted shapes. Now you might be asking, why do leaves matter? While they aren't plot critical, leaves help to enrich immersion. The leaves are the difference between a good world and a believable one. They let the audience experience the world through sensory and emotional context, not just exposition. To conclude, there are many different ways to approach world building and which parts you should focus on when developing a world within a narrative. Whether it be through a beautiful narrative focus or a reoccurring world meant to tell stories for decades, having a systematic approach can help you tackle this monumental task. Also, you don't have to listen to me. If something just works for you, just do that. If you're still here, please hit like and subscribe. I try to post around once a month. And have a safe journey, traveler.